Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Monday, February 6th. Hope you had a great weekend and your weekend and getting your week started off right. If not, we're going to do that right now with the great Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers. Don, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Jim. How are you?
Great. First of all, I was mad earlier and I said, damn, and that's why I said that, because I meant to send a video of that I made from over the weekend of Don being acknowledged for his 50 years of service at IU. So you're lucky I didn't get that done because I know he hates that stuff. Trust me, people. He hates the acknowledgement, but he deserves it. Then so that's the problem that we face. But congratulations. So I won't make it any harder on you. You're lucky I screwed up and forgot to send that over.
Good. Really good.
But congratulations for being, that has to be cool just because of all the games that you're doing all the time and watching all the action on the court, because I know you're locked into what you're doing and seriously, because you got all this stuff going through your head and stats and especially a big game like that, and have to be taken away and taken down to the court to kind of do something totally outside of it and something totally you hate, standing, be acknowledged, but it had to be fun and a little nerve-wracking for you at the same time.
Well, the most important thing, and when they said they're going to do this thing, and I go, well, the only way you're going to do it is if I can take my guys out there with me. All the guys that have worked color for me over the years, including Max Skjodt, who was my first color analyst for the first 24 years I did Indiana football and basketball games. Max was our color analyst for those broadcasts. And I said, if I can bring my guys out there on the floor with me, then it's okay. I will come down, we'll do it, and we'll get it out of the way, and it'll be done quickly. Because I was not going to make speeches or any of those kinds of things. So literally, it was a very nice little ceremony. I got to introduce each of those guys that have been with me through the years as color analysts. Obviously, Royce Waltman wasn't there because he passed away several years ago from cancer. And then obviously Pete Capizzi lives in Florida in the wintertime, or at least about 2 or 3 months in the wintertime. And he obviously couldn't make it back for the celebration. But nevertheless, the rest of those guys were all there. It was really fun to have them there. And it was special for me to have a chance to introduce them.
Yeah, especially Joe Smith, who has been with you almost the entire length of the run.
Yeah, 40 years. Joe's been with me 40 of my 50. So yeah, he was obviously there and is an icon in Bloomington, as everyone knows. He's been there almost his entire career, with the exception, I think, of maybe his first year or two. He was in Galesburg, Illinois, when he first got into broadcasting then, and then he came back to Bloomington and has been there ever since, and obviously still does football and basketball games for the local high school. So obviously a great broadcaster and a guy that we've used in many, many different roles on our broadcast. Started out as a statistician and moved into engineering at one point, pregame, halftime, postgame show host, and did spotting for me in football on top of that. So like I said, he's kind of a jack of all trades, master of many.
Well, it was a great event. We're glad that we've got to see it happen. And more importantly, you got to see Indiana not only knock off do something they have never done, not knocking off a #1 team, but knocking off a #1 Purdue team, because that had never happened. Purdue coming into Bloomington as #1. They did. Indiana beats them for a second straight year. That had to be a big old bunch of a bushel of cherries on top of the icing on that one.
Yeah, there's no question. It was a huge win for the program. #1, #2, 8th win over a #1 ranked team in the history of IU basketball, which is obviously special. And to have it beat Purdue in this particular case, which is always special to beat Purdue because these two are arch rivals. And Purdue has dominated Indiana over the years. When you look at the records of how many times they played, you have 95 Indiana wins, and Purdue has 125 Purdue wins. So
I will say this, Don, you have to look at the majority of those came in the first 30 years of them playing. I think it's since 1940, Indiana has a winning record.
Yeah, I think that's correct. But it's right. It's very close. I mean, there's not much separating these two teams outside of those first 30 years when they started playing way back in the
Indiana fans just don't want to hear that.
I know, but it's true. I mean, and that's factual.
I know it is. It's a fact.
But of course, anytime a Purdue fan wants to bring that information up, they just say, "Well, yeah, how many banners you got in there?" And
yeah. The one that says, I think they have an Elite Eight banner now.
You know what? I love rivalries. I just think that's the most fun that you can have from a broadcasting standpoint is when rivals meet. That's why it just makes me sick that Indiana isn't playing Kentucky every year, because what a great rivalry that is. It's even more of a bitter rivalry, I think, than the Purdue.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Kentucky is one of those schools that just they have their. There's ways to describe it, and therefore I can't do it because it would get us kicked off the air. But nevertheless, Kentucky is one of those schools that you just love to beat, and Indiana has done it more times than not. Actually, I think that rivalry is very close too, but I think Indiana might have the edge in that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, someone like me, I grew up in Southern Indiana, and I couldn't give a rat's butt about Purdue because it just was not in my lexicon when I was first growing up. But Kentucky was, and it was like that's all I cared about was Indiana beating Kentucky as a youth. But it's luckily I think that we're going to see that resume sooner rather than later, and you'll be doing a Kentucky-Indiana game again soon. I can't wait for us to be able to that information to get out to announce. But there was plenty enough great stuff to announce from over the weekend. First of all, Don, this was the best performance overall by Indiana I've seen all year. It was the best defensive performance that I saw in the first 5 minutes. It looked like they had 7 guys on the court with arms flying all over the place. And they were just determined defensively in this game.
There's no question that the difference in the ball game was Indiana's defensive play, in my opinion, on their guards. That's where the game was won, because Braden Smith is a terrific freshman guard for Purdue, and Fletcher Lawyer is he's a shooting guard that has been tremendous for them as well. Both are freshmen and both play like they're juniors. These guys have been around. They act like they've been around. They are tough as heck as competitors, and Indiana was able to take them out of what they were trying to do in that regard, especially in the first half, and did it for most of the ball game, to be quite honest about it. But they had to expend a ton of energy to get it done. But you're absolutely right. That first 5 minutes was special, and they basically maintained that kind of intensity throughout the first half. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been up by 15 at halftime. It was 50-35 halftime score, Indiana on top. The second half, I think Indiana was a little out of gas. I don't think that the intensity level was quite what it was previously. Purdue made some adjustments. They got the ball down low to Zach Edey almost any time they wanted to, and Zach Edey took advantage of it. He goes for 33 points and 18 rebounds, just a tremendous performance. But Trace Jackson-Davis was daggone good at the other end of the floor for Indiana as well. And Indiana was able to hang on at the end, win the ball game. It was a 1-point game with 2 minutes to go. And Indiana made the plays down at the end that finished it off. And Purdue never led a single time in that contest.
Yeah, I was wondering that. I didn't thought about that at one point. I'm like, did they ever lead? But at the half, that defense had forced Purdue into 11 turnovers, which was about a half a turnover more than they had usually averaged for a game. More importantly, Indiana was very efficient in those turnovers because I think they got a lot of runouts with them, and they got 12 points off of those turnovers, which compared to 1 point for Purdue off of that. And another thing, I've never seen a team get out rebounded as badly as Indiana did, but still win a game. And that's something that Matt Painter talked about afterwards. He said, usually when you got a guy that goes for 33 and 18 and you out rebound someone as well as they did by 18, I think, he goes, you're going to win a game. He goes, but they just played too good a defense. And that's what Indiana did. They played defense on everybody. You talked about the guards. They ended up going, those freshman guards ended up going, 5 for 20, I think, for 20%. Total of 16 points. Jalen Hood-Schifino, 8 of 15 by himself for 16 points. Only 1 turnover for him. So there's your story of freshman guards between Indiana and Purdue.
Well, I got to correct one thing I said. Purdue never led. They did lead in this ball game, but only for 35 seconds. So
I was going to say it must have been way early, or
it was way early in the ball game, and yeah, they did lead the contest, but it was in the first minute of the contest. But never that all said, Indiana just played so well at the defensive end, and they actually had a 20-8 points in the paint, or points on turnovers. Indiana had 20 points on turnovers to just 8 for Purdue, and forced Purdue into 16 turnovers, which they haven't done that. I don't know that they've had any more turnovers than that on the season in any individual game. So this is a Purdue team that had lost one time, that when Indiana beat them on Saturday. So now they have 2 on the board. They have played great basketball. Indiana found the recipe to win this contest, but they're going to have to find it again when they play them at Purdue here in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, I guess, from now. So it's going to be a challenge. But right now, Indiana's back in the hunt in this Big Ten chase, but they're tied for 3rd place with 5 other teams. There are 6 teams tied for 3rd place in this league right now.
Don, do you ever recall in your years of a pack of this big? I mean, there's always, I remember 3 and 4, but man, to see 6 teams there with the identical record, and it's just amazing to me.
Well, it's been, I mean, if you think about the Big Ten here in the last 5 or 6 years, this league is just stuffed with parity. I mean, there's so many teams in this league that can beat you on a given night. Now, has it been quite like this? I'm not quite sure it is, but we have said before over the last 4 or 5 years that the Big Ten from top to bottom is the best league in the country. And I don't think there's any question that we've got the same scenario again this year in that regard. Purdue is obviously up there ahead of everybody else, but they just have been proven. Rutgers beat them at West Lafayette, and Indiana beats them in Bloomington. So they can be beaten. And maybe other guys, other coaches now figure out that this is the way you got to go about playing these guys. And we'll see how it all plays out, of course. But right now, the most important thing is that Indiana is in the hunt once again for the Big Ten championship. They're just a couple of games or 3 games back. They've got to come up with a formula to continue to win. And they've got a real challenge this week because they've got Rutgers, a team that they haven't beaten in the last 4 years. Trace Jackson Davis has never beaten Rutgers. He is 0-6 against them. 6 straight wins for the Rutgers ball club over Indiana. 8 of the last 9 games played between these two, Rutgers has won. And you're going to have to play them after an emotional win over Purdue, which drains a lot of energy from players. And I think it's always really hard to come back the next ball game after pulling off a major upset like Indiana did on Saturday and doing the same thing against a team that has your number the next time out. So I think Indiana's got a huge challenge on their hands this week with this Rutgers ball club. And then they play another 3rd place tied team in Michigan on Saturday on the road.
Yeah, the Rutgers game is going to be tough for a number of reasons, Don. First of all, it's a quick turnaround. You go from that Saturday game right to a Tuesday game, and you mentioned it being an emotional game. Fortunately, I think the only thing that will alleviate some of that is Trace Jackson Davis is well aware, because he mentioned it already in the post-game presser, talking about Rutgers and looking to Rutgers. He's kind of I think that he's reached a businessman type approach right now, and he mentioned having not beaten them, and he's kind of reached a point in this season to where he's tired of having what happened to him at Rutgers this year, what happened to him against Arizona and Kansas. And I think he reached a point and said, that's it, I'm tired of this. And it's actually fun to watch him play, and it's been fun to watch him play of late, especially as they try to open up that lane, man. And like I think you mentioned this last week, when he's palming the ball, this new move that he's got of palming the ball, it's like, look out, guys, I'm coming in. And he was doing that against Edie. It didn't matter. You can tell he's playing with so much more confidence. And he mentioned getting punked verbatim. I think he heard me say that before, but they got punked at Rutgers, and he said it, and he goes, that's not going to happen this time, and I don't think it will in the Simon Skjodt Assembly Hall. And if it does, that means Indiana has won 7 out of their last 8 games.
Oh, you mean Rutgers?
Yes.
Rutgers has won, I think. Let me check my note here.
Well, but if Indiana beats Rutgers, that will be Indiana's like 7th out of 8 games.
Indiana has lost 8 of the last 9 times they played. To
Rutgers, yes. I'm talking about currently on their current streak right now. If they go ahead and beat Rutgers, that will with that loss, the loss to Maryland coming last week, they had won 6 in a row at that point, or 5 in a row, I think.
They had won 5 straight before they lost to Maryland. Yeah.
So, so they're on a good late season surge, and they need this for getting the double bye in the Big Ten tournament, which is of ultimate importance. And so, beating Rutgers, they need to get past them, not lose the home game, NCAA seeding, because beating number 1 Purdue is helping them with that. Duke beat North Carolina, so you're not counting on that. There's just so much that goes into this stuff, Don, that's out of their control, but they can only control what they can, and that's winning games.
Right. At this point, you can't worry about anything other than the next game. And I know that's coach speak and cliche-ish and all that kind of thing. It's just reality. I mean, the fact of the matter is players cannot get caught up in anything down the road. If they do, and that's where their focus is, they're not going to win the next game. It's just that simple. This league is too tough. You can't look ahead past anybody. And Indiana's got 2 games this week. They're going to be very challenging. Rutgers being the first, Michigan on the road being the second. Again, you can't get past these 2 ball games. If you lose these 2 ball games, you're back down there probably in 9th or 10th or 11th place in this league.